Associate Director of the Nelly Berman School of Music. Our school's wonderful sense of community could not exist without our talented student musicians. Over the next few weeks, we'll be presenting some of our special students and families in a series of short interviews. Today, I'm pleased to be interviewing Daniel Schlosberg, an alumnus of the Nelly Berman School of Music, where he studied with school founder Nelly Berman, current school director Elena Berman, as well as Dr. Igor Rosnyansky and Dr. Irina Yurgovskaya. He went on to receive his bachelor's from Yale University and his master's and doctorate from the Yale School of Music, and is now a composer and pianist whose works have been described by the New York Times as richly detailed yet delicate, and by the Wall Street Journal as witty and ingenious, and have been performed by the Dover Quartet, the Nashville Symphony, and the Buffalo Philharmonic, among others. Hi, Daniel. Thank you for joining me today. I still remember how ecstatic the Nelly Berman School of Music was when you decided to continue your music studies at Yale. At that time, you were one of the first students at the school to become a professional musician. How would you describe your current vocation?
Well, hi, Stephanie. Thank you so much for interviewing me, and it's a real pleasure to kind of give something back to a place that I really owe so much to. And yeah, I mean, I do a lot of things. I mean, I'm really just a freelancer at this point, and I both, perform regularly, not now, obviously. Everything was canceled. I perform regularly as a pianist, both in, chamber music settings, orchestral, solo, as well as compose, write a lot of music for a variety of ensembles and some orchestral stuff. And also I help run an opera company in New York. So I have these kind of three hats that I wear. One is pianist, one is a composer, and one is kind of like a music director. So I feel fortunate to have kind of forged that path.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like this next question is going to be difficult to answer because it's such a varied career. But what does a typical day look like for you?
Yeah, it's great. I love being able to do this kind of work because every day is so different. And I thrive on that kind of variety. I think if I had to go to, the same job every day, I don't know. I mean, I'd probably get used to it, but I really love just like going from, some days I'm just at home and I'm working on music, I'm working on arranging something, I'm writing something, I'm practicing. And then, some days I have to go in to rehearse in Manhattan. Sometimes I have to rehearse near me in Brooklyn, or have a rehearsal at my place. Sometimes I'm traveling to play a concert or to work with something. I'm often in theatrical rehearsals. So it really depends. It's really always very, very different.
That's awesome. So you mentioned that you're working with an opera company. I saw that your upcoming works include a collaboration with New York City's Heartbeat Opera, as well as students from Columbia University and 6 choruses from prisons. Featured at the Metropolitan Museum of Art this fall. Can you tell us more about how you got involved in this project and what your experience has been like working with so many different organizations?
Absolutely. Yeah. So Heartbeat Opera is actually a company that I helped run. And this is our 6th season right now. And I started it with 3 colleagues from Yale, 2 directors from the Yale School of Drama, theater directors, and another musician from the Yale School of Music, who's a violinist and conductor. And we started it in 2014. And Heartbeat, it's really about bringing opera into the 21st century and bringing it to young audiences, to new audiences, to people who would not necessarily have gone to an opera, and really taking on the drama of each story and updating it and making it relevant. And what I do is create new orchestrations for these pieces. We usually deal with classic works like we've done Carmen, Lucia di Lammermoor, and Don Giovanni and all that kind of thing. And there's no way in this, with our finances and with the organization, the size of our organization, that we can have a full orchestra. So one of the things at the very beginning we put in our mission was to create chamber versions of these pieces. So that's what I've been doing with that company for the past, as well as conduct. I also conduct and I play, often conduct from the keyboard. So what I've been doing with Heartbeat for the past 5 years is these operas. And the collaboration that you mentioned originally was going to happen. I mean, we did Fidelio, which is Beethoven's only opera, back in 2018. Mm-hmm. And the idea was to kind of tackle the contemporary American criminal justice system, and have a version that looks and feels like prisons in America today. And we ended up collaborating with, so there's a famous chorus in Fidelio, Prisoners Chorus.
Right.
And again, like our version of this, when you go to see it on stage at the Met, or when you go to see it on stage in Europe, often what you see is like a lot of people, white people in rags and like dirt on their faces. And that was just that's not what we wanted to portray. And that's not the reality of America, in this today and in prisons in America. And so we decided that we would try to include actual incarcerated people. We wanted to see their faces and hear their voices in our production. So I have a friend from grad school who conducts a prison choir in Minnesota. And her name is Amanda Weber, and I connected with her when we broached this idea, and she was very enthusiastic, and she also connected us to two other prison choir conductors, three other prison choir conductors, one in Iowa, one in Kansas, and one in Ohio. And the person in Ohio actually has three different choirs that she conducts. And we just started this collaboration, and we decided that the best thing to do would to see if we could go and film them singing excerpts of I mean, obviously we could have to go to each of these places because they can't travel anywhere. So we were able to go to originally four out of the six facilities, and make these videos and audio recordings and use that in our production. And that composite of video and audio of these incarcerated people singing became our Prisoners Chorus. So that got a lot of notice, and we're thankful for that back in 2018. And now that it's Beethoven's 250th this year. So we started getting a lot of requests, and the Metropolitan Museum of Art reached out and was really interested in putting it on in the fall. Obviously now it's delayed, and thankfully not canceled, but delayed to right now the dates are in February 2021.
Got you.
So
Okay.
we'll be doing three performances of it with our original cast, most of our original cast, as well as well, and here's the other story, and sorry, this is taking forever, but I think it's interesting to hear, especially because it relates to the current, what's happening right now, is that we were supposed to go and reshoot 5 out of the 6 prisons in March. And it was the week after the state started shutting down. And I think it was devastating. There was so much preparation. All the men and women were looking forward to seeing us after a couple of years. We went there originally in 2018. And I'm so glad. I mean, in a way, it's just, as you know, prisons, like nursing homes, are just real. It's just a breeding ground for a virus. And in fact, one of the Ohio facilities in Marion, Ohio, was written up in the news last week and continues to be, because it had, I think, 3/4 of the men there tested positive.
Is this one of your biggest productions that you've done so far? You mentioned Lucia di Lammermoor, you mentioned some others, but this one sounds like it just drew in so many people.
It is, in terms of the scale of who's involved. I would say actually the size of the production, there were only 5, five singers, and the band was 7, I believe. So it was pretty small, but yes, the amount of people, and I forgot to mention Columbia University. There's this really wonderful program called the Eric Holder Initiative for civil rights, social justice, and one of the professors somehow heard about our production, and I think he runs it. His name is Bernard Harcourt. And he came to see it in 2018 and then started a relationship with us, and he ended up being on some of the panels that we've done since then. And he helped, and he's helping partner with students at Columbia. And we were originally going to have some student interns to help us and travel with us, and they are still going to help out and as we look towards the Met remount. But it's been a really wonderful collaboration, and they lend a whole different perspective to us, because we come from a musical and theatrical, and then there are these students who are studying civil rights and studying, mass incarceration. So it's fantastic to have them as well.
So you've now talked about a lot of the theater and opera work that you do, but when you perform and compose, what style of music and repertoire do you tend to gravitate towards, and why?
All over the map, I think. I'm fortunate in a way I end up playing a lot of new music, or a lot of 20th century to contemporary work, just based on the groups that I perform with, like anywhere from premieres of pieces to, Bartók's 2-piano percussion sonata, which I was able to do last year. And yeah, as a performer, I love doing, and even to like romantic song cycles. I perform with the Brooklyn Art Song Society usually every year, and just did a Grieg piece with alto. And so I'm really fortunate to have to be able to do that, because I really love all kinds of, and I play on harpsichord sometimes too. Like in Don Giovanni, I performed when we did it on tour in Portland, Oregon. I played the harpsichord for that, which is always really, really fun.
Oh,
so I love doing a lot of different things, as Nelly, and Elena will remember. They found it hard to like pin me down. So yeah.
Yeah, I remember one performance where you reached inside the piano.
Yeah, I did a Crumb piece. I was like, I'm playing this piece, Little Sweet for Christmas, back when I was a junior in high school probably, and I think Irina, my teacher at the time, just like didn't quite know what to say, but I was really into it back then. Still am, for sure.
All right. So now we've heard quite a bit about your current career, and I'd like to take a step back to the beginning. How old were you when you started studying piano, and what made you choose that instrument?
Yeah, great. I think I was about 5, which is late, I know, according to Elena. I think I was about 5 when I first took lessons. And again, my parents both took piano when they were young, but they both quit because their parents had like forced them to like take lessons. So they weren't, passionate about it in the way that they wanted to kind of like, really pursue it after high school or whenever they stopped. My mom probably earlier. I think my dad played through high school. So they didn't want to force that on me.
Mm-hmm.
But when I was really young, every time I would go to my grandmother's place, she lived maybe 10 minutes from us when I was growing up, from until I was about 5 or 6, we would go there and I would like just go to the piano and just start playing. Even when I was like very small, like 1 or 2 years old, I think I would just like always want to sit at the piano and just do something. So they were like, oh, okay, I guess he should take some lessons. And so when we moved to Cincinnati, I started piano there and then studied for 5 years with not Elena or Nelly. And so then I got to Philly, and I think our pediatrician recommended us to go to the Nelly Berman School and take lessons. I think she was like, oh, your son's a pianist? Like, go here. And so we went, and then I just have all these like embedded, burn into me, these recollections of my first time playing for Nelly.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't even imagine what I sounded like. I was 10. I was 10 years old. So I was like old. Obviously, they start people when they're very young.
Yeah.
So I think Nelly listened to me play some Clementi, and she was just like, I don't know how, like, I think she sugarcoated it like, oh, he has, he's talented, but like he just has no technique or something. Or like something really, like she clearly, so I think they realized, but to their credit, like they did realize that I had a hunger for it somehow. Like she noticed that I was really like musically in tune or passionate or something. So she was like, okay. So she had to like put me on a crash course of their technique, and thankfully I just like, from there I just went really forward because I was so invested in practicing even, and then like learning all of the material. And I'm really grateful that they saw that in me at that age. Yeah.
So we've kind of touched on it a little bit, but the Nelly Berman School of Music has been very fortunate to have a very talented student body over the years. However, not many of our students go on to pursue music professionally. And in general, many talented young music students in the US decide to pursue other interests. At what moment did you like realize that you definitely wanted to pursue music?
I think probably, so I moved to Philadelphia in 5th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the end of 5th grade, I still had an idea that I wanted to be an architect, because I think I remember distinctly, we had to write down like where we'll be in, 10 years or something,
Mm-hmm.
on our 5th grade with our teacher. And I said like an architect at Cornell or something. And my teacher like looks at it and was like, Daniel, an architect? I think she was like, you're like, what about piano? So I think at that point it was very clear to her that I was like, why am I not trying to pursue music? But then in middle school, that's when I really started singing in choir and writing music in middle school, and taking composition lessons, and piano obviously just like skyrocketed from there. And that was certainly when I thought I might make a go at that. I had no idea what that meant at the time, but just like, I just wanted to like do music all the time.
Mm-hmm. That's so young to realize that you want something to be part of your life forever like that.
I know. I don't think I just instinctively kind of knew that music is what I was, put here to do. And I didn't, once I started pursuing it, I was like, that's what I want to be spending my time with. And fortunate or unfortunate, didn't have it like think about alternatives.
So you mentioned the teacher that dissuaded you from architecture, thankfully. But who are some of the other important musicians and maybe even people who have influenced you over the years?
Well, I mean, Nelly and Elena and Arena, Igor, everybody there. And it's interesting, like when there are moments in more recent years that I'm really able to process like how much their teaching has influenced the way that I approach music and the way that I play. And I can't overstate it. It is huge. It was like, I think it's like when I think there are two situations in which I realized like how much it had an effect on me. One is when I went on, Boris Berman, who's this Yale piano professor. I studied with him a little bit at Yale, not much, but and when I started taking lessons, I realized like everything that he was teaching was what I had been taught, and it's so interesting. I mean, it was just like bringing me back to exactly how Nelly and Elena, when I first started out, how they teach you to use your body, and to focus different parts of your body on technique. So that was really crazy. And the other one was when I actually have to teach myself, and I don't really teach that much, but I was at a summer festival and in Portland, and this oboist, Alan Vogel, who's like in the LA Chamber Orchestra, he's like, he's probably 70. Right. He just approached me. He's like, do you want to give me a piano lesson? Like, I've been working on Bach inventions. And I said, sure. And it just like came when I just spent an hour with him, and he wanted to help with technique, and it just like poured right out. I was just able to remember everything they said about wrist and like flexible wrist and like all of this stuff. And it's really, so all that to say that Nelly and Elena and Igor and Irina particularly have had a major influence. And then as I got older, I started having, other mentors along the way. And in college, my piano professor, Wei Young at Yale, was really wonderful. And Peter Frankel, who I studied with a bit. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, I mean, there's Aaron Kernis, who I also studied with in grad school composition, and Hung Kwan Chen, another pianist who I started working with in grad school and kind of am still in touch with a bit. But I mean, so many, and then obviously like artists out there in the world that we all are influenced by. But I've been fortunate to have a bunch of wonderful mentors who've believed in my work and helped me along the way.
It's great that you also keep in touch with all of these people and keep connected. I think kind of that's something that was very special about our class of alumni from the Nelly Berman School. I remember, talented alumni like you, like Ellen, Felix, Mac Robinson, who inspired me to become more serious about music. And I personally have incredibly fond memories of all those concerts, all those fundraisers.
Same.
Yeah. And then I always enjoy catching up with you guys because you guys do tend to come back to the alumni events.
Yeah. We try. Right.
Do you have any particularly special memories that you'd like to share?
Oh my gosh. I mean, the school there's so many memories at the school. I mean, I think they really nurtured me, and it's a lot of tough love, as you know.
Oh yes.
Memories of crying after Nelly lessons, but then like, learning the music. I think they know that children, like, they can be a little harsh, but they know that children, people who have the right work ethic and the right passion, will like come out from that even more determined. And I of course, like, I mean, there's so many things that just I always remind them of, like when we're in a lesson, I'm on the lesson with Irina, and then every time, of course, Nelly walks right in and just starts speaking in Russian, probably about me, to Irina right in front of me. I mean, that's something I just always, it's just inevitably bound to happen in a lesson. And I just remember performing all those little concerts that she organized where we performed for each other. I think were so important. And it fostered, a little friendly competition, but I think it also helped us kind of, gauge ourselves and figure out what we needed to do, and what the kind of work that we would see people who were 5 years older than us. I remember at 10 or 11, right when I first started, like being shepherded to these concerts and being like, oh my God, I don't know, like these people are insane. Yeah. I don't know if I can do that. So yeah, just the atmosphere and the constant music and the love. I mean, I think that the love for music was so strong there. And that really, I can't, it's hard for me to say exactly how that translated, but I know that that they instilled that in me, for sure.
Yeah, I agree that one of the things that was so formative to me were those master classes or performance classes where, you'd play and then everyone would say something about your piece.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yep.
There's some tough love that went on in those sessions.
There's a lot. Yep, there was a lot. I mean, usually the toughest of all would just be like Elena or Nelly just telling you like, nope, that's not where it should be, you know?
I'm back in 3 weeks.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you come back in 3 weeks and, you know, you would have worked very hard.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. We've talked about it a little bit, but we're obviously facing a lot of uncertainty now with the coronavirus. None of our teachers have been able to teach at the school since mid-March, and you've mentioned how it's affected you and people that you know as well. How has music helped you during this time, and how do you think it can be helpful for others?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, you can't sugarcoat this pandemic. It's really devastating for the arts. Most of my colleagues are out of work right now. I am somewhat fortunate to have things that I can still be doing that are not performance based, that are not live performance based, because of course music is a genre that needs people.
Right.
Like it fundamentally needs people. But that being said, it's been an amazing opportunity to kind of, you know, to reflect, take a step back, you know, start practicing on stuff that I really want to learn. Like I just took a huge stack of music and I'm like, I want to, you know, learn Goyaskas or something, and just to spend time every day. And it's because sometimes I just don't have time to go and be like, I want to just learn a piece that I want to play, and that like gives me, you know, personal fulfillment. So it's been great for that, and having time to really like have my own schedule and work at my own pace, and listen to a lot of music. And every night, you know, it's funny, pretty much every night I've been able to watch the Metropolitan Opera live stream, and that is just, it's wonderful. It's both like homework, quote homework, that I should be doing, and like learning this whole repertoire of pieces that's so vast, and and just watching, you know, live performance and people up close is just, I feel like that has something to do with it. And it has a kind of personal connection that you miss in performance, that we can't be in concert halls. But I think music has such a deep capacity to show our humanity, and to like remind ourselves that there is humanity out there. So yes, absolutely.
Also, as an aside, have you been inspired by any of the operas that you've heard? Is there any that
Yeah, I mean, I mean, you know, there was this amazing production of Tristan und Isolde. It's a newish production of the Met, and it's like really dark and on a ship and just like murky, and it was just so beautifully done. I was able to watch the whole Ring cycle, which was quite an undertaking, but they also did that, and they did the Meistersinger, also an incredible piece, Meistersinger. And you know, for my opera company, we're always looking for like kind of like big pieces to like, you know, really reconfigure and adapt. So seeing the Met, seeing like the standard rep of opera is great, because I'm always like, oh, that piece could really work for 4 singers instead of a full or whatever. So it's really good for that, and also just inspiring again to revisit all of this really truly incredible music from all different periods of time.
That's wonderful. How has your opera company and you in general been dealing with the whole social distancing part? You mentioned that you're lucky to have projects that you're able to continue working on.
Yeah. So we were supposed to be mounting a workshop of our newest production of Macbeth, Verdi's Macbeth, that we call Lady M. Right around this time. We were going to go up to MPAC, which is a beautiful experimental music center in Troy, New York, right now, and obviously canceled. We were supposed to do, I think, 4 to 6 live performances in May, canceled. So, you know, the creative team put our heads together, and we decided we would do a remote residency on Zoom. So for this is our second week. Last week we started, and we've been, you know, creating an online fantasia. That's like what we like to call it, and of Lady M. And we have our singers, and we have our band actually, and it's a combination of kind of rehearsing music to be performed live next in May at soirees, which I'll talk about. Also recording my new orchestration with the band, everyone doing their own parts, and we have a wonderful audio engineer who's also in the band who's putting it together. So we're presenting, I think, 18 live Zoom soirees from May 11th through I think like the 20th or 22nd, and people can buy a ticket and have their household come in on Zoom and watch a live performance, as well as a music video that we're putting together of one of the arias in my orchestration and with the singer and with visuals. And it's been amazing. It's difficult. It is not the same by any means of rehearsing in person. However, I think people have found some joy and found some connection even in our disparate locations. The director and the movement director give people projects to record on video of like them like with a little candle and dark, or like with dagger on their table, and like really kind of making creative use of what people have in their homes.
Right.
So that'll all be featured in like the music video that we make. So it's been like really great, because there's still community, you still have a sense of community, even if we can't physically be together. And there's a sense of creation and artistic inspiration and creativity that we still can access, which has been really wonderful. And I think we'll continue to explore as the future is still uncertain, how to make use of this, this unique time.
So I couldn't help but see in your bio that you also baking cookies.
I do.
Yeah, have you taken on any fun baking projects in the last few weeks?
Well, of course, as we all know, quarantine is like the perfect time for baking. Yeah, I mean, I've made a bunch of different cookies. Of course, I always love that. I made bolo bao, which are like pineapple buns. Yeah, that was it's actually not that difficult, and it takes a while, but it's a great thing to have in my freezer. Because I'm like, you never knew that you craved them until you can't have them anymore. And I made a Japanese milk bread that was really great, and banana bread, of course, that's everyone's quarantine favorite. And I have a huge list of like more things to bake, so I'm really excited about that. It's great to have time, because I love baking so much, but like when I'm in the midst of like all the craziness of performing and writing and all this stuff, it's like hard to find time. But now it's definitely easier to like be like, I want to do a thing that takes 8 hours, and I'm just going to be like doing it and then letting it rise and then doing more. So it's great in that respect.
That is wonderful. Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me today. It was such a pleasure to hear more about you, your career, and your path to becoming a professional musician. We're all looking forward to hearing what you do next.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thanks to the school and Elena, and hi to everyone there. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.